wake up again. I tell you what, Bob, I don't know if it's you or me, but this computer does not want to hear from us today. Let's hope it's not like that across the listening landscape. Our visit presented by Marcus and Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 3 years in a row on the Best of Indiana County contest. You can visit them online at marcusandmack.com. It was interesting to me, Bob, this week I read this headline: it's legal again now in Pennsylvania to fertilize the lawn. I bet you people don't even realize that there are restrictions on when you can actually fertilize your lawn in Pennsylvania. Rules passed in 2022 apply to both homeowners and companies caring for home lawns. It is illegal to apply any fertilizer to the lawn between December 15th and March the 1st, or any time the ground is snow-covered or frozen to a depth of at least 2 inches. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
Yes, I actually knew that. That there are similar laws in other states that have been passed, before Pennsylvania got into the act. And probably what maybe pushed along those restrictions in Pennsylvania was the whole Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah.
So some surrounding states had already enacted similar laws, and then Pennsylvania followed suit. But it's really to minimize any excess fertilizer, keeping it from getting in streams and waterways and eventually into larger bodies of water.
Because if it's snow-covered, obviously with the snow melt, it can get into the waterways that way. And if the ground is frozen, it's not going to absorb into the lawn. It's just going to skim over the top and make its way down that way.
Yes. Yeah, especially, if we think we had a pretty solid winter. And so any of those, if you would get a window to go out and start doing that and putting applications on, say, in February or March, because the ground was frozen, then obviously it's going to take a long time for the fertilizer granules to melt, and then get down into the soil. And of course, if the soil's frozen, it might dissolve, but it might lay there on the top. And then if we get a bigger rain event, or even, a snow event, then that material can all be moved off-site.
Yeah.
And that's just a waste. So by putting those limitations on, it's really not much of a limitation anyway, because the grass is already dormant anyhow, and it just further prevents any issues from potential runoff movement of fertilizer materials off-site.
Yeah, and as you have said, they have plenty of food right now in the springtime, and this isn't exactly the time when they might need something like that.
Right, and we would have, you probably would have put a fall application on maybe in September or October, and that will, take care of things into the fall and help, because your yard at that point, late summer into early fall, is trying to recover because it's probably had some stress during the summer, and especially this past summer, we had a lot of dry weather. Droughty weather. So a lot of lawns that would not have been watered or have irrigation systems, which most of ours don't, in Pennsylvania, different in, some other states. But here, we typically don't have to worry about that as much. How last year was an exception. And so you have your yard going into the fall stressed, and fall's really a time where we tend to have cooler temperatures, more ample moisture, so that we can get recovery, grow new roots, have the grass repair itself. Mm-hmm. And so we may have, put an application on during that period of time just to help that along. And then we wouldn't apply again until now we're starting to move into the time frame where you would do your first application of the spring, just to help, even though the grass is going to grow pretty fast in the spring, as it typically does, because we mostly have cool season grasses, which like cooler weather better. So spring, we get that big flush of growth. And we talked about mowing a couple of weeks ago a little bit, where we might need to mow, twice a week, initially to keep things under control and to not stress the grass, as it's growing in the spring and getting off to a good start.
There,
the other, I wanted to met that the fertilizer law. You will also note that on most bags of fertilizer that you buy to apply for turf use, the only thing in it anymore is nitrogen. So there's the three numbers on the bag: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And and we used to have more often you'd have phosphorus in there as well. And so that's the second number on the label. In more recent years, they've taken the phosphorus out because in a lot of cases, the soil tends to hold phosphorus, and especially in turf, it doesn't use a lot of phosphorus. And so we were getting over applications of that. It was building up in the soil to the point where then it started to cause issues downstream, literally.
Well,
and so they removed that, as they did the phosphates that were in laundry detergents and other products. So same thing.
Well, the interesting part of what you've just said is that's also part of the new law that took effect in 2022. Nitrogen can be applied only in limited amounts, and there must be an exception. The exception is when a soil test shows that more nitrogen is necessary. Phosphorus is prohibited, again, unless a soil test shows that the lawn needs it. Exceptions include when a new lawn is being established or when a lawn is being repaired, and when the phosphorus is an enhanced efficiency product or in a natural organic or organic-based fertilizer. But there's also a ban on the use of non-aquatic fertilizers within 15 feet of a lake, pond, wetland, stream, creek, or river. And there's a requirement that any fertilizer that spills onto an impervious surface, like a sidewalk, a driveway, your patio, or the street, has to be removed immediately following the application. So they're pretty serious about it. Their ability to enforce things of that nature might be questioned, but they really don't want those. They want better control, I guess, is the best way to put it, over those materials. And you have always been an advocate of a soil test for your lawn anyway. So in this case, it demands the soil test in order to use certain chemicals.
Yes. Yeah, and so that's a big change. It's not, should you do it? We encourage you to do it, but if you want to apply those nutrients, you need to document that they are indeed needed, that there is a deficiency in your soil that would require that the plant needs that to grow well. And so by doing the soil test, then we can document what our levels are of those nutrients in the soil. And then and if it's okay, if it's in the optimum range, then we don't need to apply it. And that's really what we want to do across the board on any crop that we're growing. We want to, if the crop needs it to grow, then okay, let's apply it. If it doesn't, it's a waste. It's a waste of money. It has potential environmental effects down the road. So we should just not do it as needed.
Well, that being the case, maybe it's time for us to go over again how to get a soil test, how you actually do a soil test. And your office certainly very much involved in that. So let's first talk about how we get a soil test done and what we have to do in order to collect the soil.
So, yes. So we have soil test kits at our office, and we even have them outside the door of the office on a table there where you can just, as long as the building's open to get in between 8:30 and 4, you can get into the office to grab one on your own, or you can come into the office and get one. And there are kits and you can just pick those up because they've changed how the process, and you just pick it up and then you send your payment in when you submit the sample now. Used to be you'd buy the kit, and then you just have to mail it. But now it's a self-mailer. Everything's there. There's directions in there. The pouch that you put the soil in, and you're only sending, it's no more than a cup of soil is what you're actually submitting. So it's important to get a good representative sample of the area that you're trying to determine what the nutrient levels are. And you can do that when you take the test, kind of make things in a grid. So if it's in your yard or if it's in your garden, kind of grid it out and then take multiple samples so that you get good coverage of the area, that it's representative of the area, and then put that all together, mix it up. Depending on the moisture level, if it's a little moist, then you want to lay it out. You can lay it out on newspaper, the whole sample, spread it out, let it dry. And it's good to have a rolling pin or something similar because oftentimes our soils, because we have more clay content in them, they'll bunch up and you'll get clumps and things. And then there might also be stones, and there might also be some plant material in there also. So if you let it dry out, it's much easier you can smash it out then, get it finer, get the rocks out, because they're not going to test the rocks anyhow. It's the soil, and get any organic debris out of there. And then grab your final sample that you're going to submit. And then it just mailed to the lab, which is in State College at Penn State, and you can get the test done. It'll be within a week. You'll have the results back. And then the nice thing about the results is that it spells out. There's a bar chart on the top that tells you whether you're low or optimum or have excess. So you get a visual there of that. And then they also has the numbers there. And for a yard and everything, it comes back in per 1,000 square feet of ground. And some of the reports will come back in 100 square feet, especially like a vegetable garden, so that it's much easier to figure out how much to apply on that unit area.
Yeah.
And then it tells you how many pounds of that particular, whether it's nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, calcium, how many pounds per that given square foot area you need to apply. So it's pretty prescriptive. There you have it.
Really quickly, because we're almost out of time.
Yes.
When you're doing a lawn with the grass cover, of course, over top of it, how deeply do you need to go into the ground in order to get your dirt?
Yes. So in a lawn sample, 4 inches, because you're trying to just take the sample within the root zone of the plant that you're growing. Okay. And so for some other plants, some vegetable plants, we might try to go down 6 to 8 inches. And then, that's kind of the key there based on the crop, and some ornamental crops and some fruit crops might have, the root systems will go down 6, 8, maybe even 10 inches. But typically, if we get down 8 inches, a lot of our soils change within that 6 to 8 inch range. We'll get into shale, or we'll get into rock, or we'll get into clay, heavy clay. So we're just trying. I will be.
Really? Will we recognize you?
Yeah, I hope so.
So do I. He's Bob Pollock. Thanks so much, Bob.
You're welcome.
It's Indiana in the Morning.